Sheryl Sandberg was COO of Facebook and riding high, doing so well, and her husband with his great career as CEO of a great tech company. Suddenly they were faced with great loss. Well, she and her kids were anyway, because her husband dropped dead on the treadmill in his 40s, died of a cardiac arrhythmia. And she blamed herself. She couldn't seem to put all the pieces back together. She felt that life itself was done, and she even went as far as to say, I will never again experience joy in my life. Such an absolute, such a statement. She blamed herself because she felt she had initially heard that he died because he fell off the treadmill and hit his head. Well, it took a while after the doctor convincing her, saying people don't die from falling off of the treadmill. It's what caused the fall in the first place that killed her. So that allayed some of her guilt for a little while, but then she started thinking, but wait a minute, if this was an underlying condition, then I should have been paying attention. I'm sure the signs were there, and if I just would have noticed, if I just would have taken better care of him, this wouldn't have happened, and my 2 children wouldn't be without a father. And so her friend Adam came along, who used to work for her husband, and they were talking, and he said, you know, things could have been a lot worse here. She said, how could they be worse? My husband's dead, my kids don't have a father. He said, this heart attack could have happened while he was driving the kids to school. It woke her up. She's like, oh my God, you're right. You're right. And so the healing process began a little bit. Not that it's always healthy to say, oh, it could be worse. Not that it could be worse really cures things or brings healing to a situation, but it can wake you up a little bit. And so as she's going along in her life, and every time she'd start to feel a little bit of happiness, she'd feel guilty for it. And one day, finally, a few years later, she was at a party with her friends. And as she's dancing with her friends out on the dance floor, and she caught herself smiling and laughing, and she started to cry. Not so much out of the guilt for feeling good, but out of the realization that she did feel good. And that her statement that I will never again experience joy was wrong. All of the signs that were right there next to her, walking along that path of loss and regret, woke her up to realize that she could be okay, even experiencing this loss. But she had decided with that declaration that she would never again experience joy to set out on the road to Emmaus, just like those 2 that Jesus encountered. See, the road to Emmaus is a road of denial. All the stuff was back in Jerusalem. All of the things that had to be fixed and dealt with to get on with life were still back in Jerusalem, but they turned and went to Emmaus to get away from it so they didn't have to deal with it. So they walked and didn't even realize when Jesus was right next to them. I had a conversation with a friend in the neighborhood the other day. We'll call him Nelson. And Nelson and his wife live around here, and we'll often encounter each other on the sidewalk or on the streets or in the neighborhood watering hole. And so we were talking, and Nelson is an adamant atheist. He's like, I just do not believe in God. I do not believe in God. Why do you choose religion as your medium for helping people or whatever it is you do? And I said, Nelson, would you rather that somebody go into a religion and coerce people who believe in a certain something and turn them into bitter, cold, hard people? Or would you rather use that medium to serve humankind, whether you do or don't believe in God? No, that's an excuse. I don't believe in God. And so we started talking about the semantics of the word God. Well, why is it that you're so caught up on this idea of God? I said, can I point out something that's rather ironic here? Here you claim to be 100% about science. Well, I'm certainly not saying I don't believe in science, or evolution, or any of that stuff. And I said, here I am the pastor, and you're the one all caught up on God. I said, frankly, I don't care. You might remember my conversation with Chad. And I don't care if you believe in God. I frustrated him a little bit. But I said, you're the one who's all caught up on this idea of God. I didn't even start this conversation. And finally, it occurred to me. I said, Nelson, who hurt you? He says, what? I said, who hurt you? Who was it that makes it so difficult for you to grasp any concept of God, whether it's the old man in the sky or the energy within us or the creation, whatever? What makes it so difficult for you? He says, my uncle's a Baptist preacher. And he used to beat us over the head with that stuff and threaten us with hell. And he says, it just messed me up. I said, welcome to the Emmaus Road. You've been walking a long time. I said, it's not my job to convince you that there is a God or there isn't a God. It's not my job. But I at least want you to open your eyes and see where you're at. Not where you think you're at. Not what you think you're feeling or experiencing. Where are you really at? And who else is with you? Now, I can't say that there was a miracle and he's like, oh, I don't know what happened afterward. I'm sure I'll see him soon and we'll find out. Maybe we'll have the exact same conversation. But that's not the point. It was at least that realization that he is on his own Emmaus Road. And then there was those two, Cleopas and his friend, whatever his name was, walking along on that road to Emmaus, running away from Jerusalem because that's where their hopes had died. They believed that Jesus was going to save them, believed that Jesus was the Messiah who was finally going to either do away with the Roman aggressors or at least find a way to live in peace and harmony with them. But in their eyes, they'd all failed miserably because Jesus ended up dead in a tomb. And when they heard this story from the women who ran to the disciples that he wasn't in the tomb, it was perplexing to them. In some ways, even disturbing. Rather than saying, thank God Jesus is risen, they hightailed it out of town. And they said, oh, things are about to get worse around here. Because if there's chitter-chatter about him not really being dead, imagine what the Jews and the Romans are going to start doing. Imagine how we're going to be under scrutiny, in danger. And that's why the rest of the disciples are still locked up in that room, hiding out and trying to be safe. And so they're walking along with their denial. They're walking along with their sense of loss and their grief, going away from that very thing that they needed to face, that very thing that they needed to work out within themselves and amongst one another. They're running away to Emmaus and didn't even realize along the way that God was there with them. That God wasn't there saying that everything's going to be okay or that I'm going to snap my fingers and make everything okay. But I'm going to walk with you through this, whatever it is you're going through on your own road to Emmaus. I'm going to walk with you. And as Jesus explained the scriptures to them, as Jesus said, you guys are fools. Didn't you hear the story? Didn't you know that these things had to happen? The Messiah had to be crucified and raised on the third day. Did you forget about all this? We had these conversations. Still, they didn't realize that Jesus was right there with them. It wasn't until they sat down at that table together and Jesus took something as plain and simple as bread and broke it and gave it to them. Something so small but yet vital to our sustenance. He gave them food in the simplest form. And in that moment, their eyes were opened and they realized God is with us. And as you read this story, it's so easy to miss it. I missed it almost every time I read it. But that last part, immediately they got up and returned to Jerusalem. They didn't even stay in Emmaus that night. They said, you know what? We got this. God is with us. We can do it. And they turned around and went back to Jerusalem to tell the disciples, you know what? Things are not going to be bad. We are going to face our fears. We are going to face our enemies. We're going to do whatever it takes, but we're going to do it together. And we're going to continue to remind each other that God is with us. I won't point anybody out, but there's people in this room, right? who have had moments in your life when you thought, oh my God, why have you forsaken me? When it seemed like everything was bleak. But today you're sitting here with a smile maybe on your face, but for sure on your heart, because things are very different. Things are very good. Things are very positive. You've come through something, but all the while, just like in this picture, maybe seeming invincible. Invisible. But God was still by your side. Just like God is by our side today. And it doesn't bother me if somebody doesn't believe in God. It doesn't bother me if they don't call it God. It doesn't matter to me what the semantics are of it. But I would be surely bothered if the world didn't know that there's something better than this. That there is hope. That there is a promise of new beginnings. And that no matter what they are going through, whether they're a Syrian refugee who just stepped off the plane, whether there's somebody who has faced abuse, whether there's somebody who's just lost their job and is going to lose their house, whether somebody who's just lost a spouse, I'd be truly bothered if we, with something as simple as breaking bread and giving them even the smallest morsel, didn't let them see the face of God. Amen. Before we sing our next hymn, I want to play a song for you. I was